folks. Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app, and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, including the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today and get the chance to continue on with our conversation. Oftentimes, I like to talk to cats multiple times because it's really hard to cover everything in just one hour slot. And so it's a high honor to welcome back to the program John Tropea. Welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake. Pleasure to be here.
Did you go to Germany yet?
No, I leave on the 21st of March.
So, I mean, can you talk about how you actually got hooked into the Blues Brothers band?
Well, as you know, the Blues Brothers band originally consisted of some of the guys from Saturday Night Live, Lou Marini, Alan Rubin, and a couple other guys, Tom Malone, and also guys from Memphis, which was Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn, and a couple of other guys. I don't remember all the guys' names. And Matt Guitar Murphy was the other guitarist. And I had subbed in the 80s, in the 90s rather, for Steve Cropper a couple of times in Europe when he couldn't make it, because they were pretty busy on tour. And so I did a couple of things with him. And of course, I know Lou Marini is in my band. He's been in my band since '73.
Really?
And I know Alan Rubin. He was too in my band.
Oh my! I love the Marini. You got to get Marini. I tried to email him, but I haven't heard back from him yet.
I'll talk to him. I got to talk to him later on today.
Yeah,
I'll mention it to him.
Thank you.
He's been pretty busy. He's on the road with James Taylor. He's going with me to Germany, and I'm going with him into Germany technically, and we're all going to Japan with my band.
Wait, so you, Marini, and Gadd are going to go into Japan?
Yeah.
Because is James Taylor? I can never figure out. So he's okay. Anyway, continue. So the point is, Rubin, Marini, that horn line, seminal horn line.
Right.
But I mean, the idea is that this was a band. I mean, can you talk about when you subbed? What kind of performance was it? Was it strictly Blues Brothers material? It's before my time. I just would love you to paint that picture.
Well, the movie was basically, Soul Man, all those R&B tunes from the '70s, and we basically play those to this day. Play those songs, B Movie and Hold On, I'm Coming, Knock on Wood. Eddie Floyd was at the time was one of the front men.
Wow, Eddie. That's all right. Okay, right. I know. So this is the question, because I talked to Ron Tutt about this. Not sure if you had a chance to play with Ron, but he's out with Neil Diamond now, and it's like, I just want you to talk to the audience, to musicians, to audience members all around the world. For John Tropea, how do you keep yourself motivated, stimulated, when, generally speaking, the set lists are incredibly formulaic, and like you said, you've been playing the same songs that the people that they want to hear. I mean, Tutt, it was a major adjustment for Ron Tutt to go into a situation where he kind of made the analogy to a football team. Everybody has a role to play. Maybe there's one part where he gets a drum solo during the show. But it's so, to me, it's just. Part of it is this. Anyway, I just would like you to talk specifically yourself, how you keep yourself engaged when you basically have been playing the same tunes for decades.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, first of all, the analogy of a football team is very good. First of all, you have to back up. When I was in Boston, all I did was play James Brown tunes and tunes that. Tunes like Soul Man, all those tunes were coming up. They were all hit records at the time. So when I play with the Blues Brothers, it's an amazing treat, and it's kind of a no-brainer because the tunes are the tunes. you're playing for the music. You're playing for the crowd. They love the tunes. So it's like that gig. When I play that gig, I'm not. I got 3 solos. I step out front, play 3 solos during the course. But most of it's having fun playing those tunes and getting into stuff with Cropper, getting into stuff with the rest of the band. But it's much more structured compared to my band. My band is more soloistic. I wouldn't say it's more free because my arrangements are pretty structured, but there's a lot more soloing, a lot more free playing. It's a treat to play with the Blues Brothers because you don't have to worry about things like, do I feel that great tonight? Am I going to play that great a solo? It's all for the music. It's really for the crowd. Loves that song, the songs we play, and you feed off the crowd, and they get great crowds. That's one thing I could say.
No, this is so important because obviously you have your own band, okay, and like free is a relative term. I mean, you're just playing. It's more spontaneous. There's more improvisation.
Right.
But I mean, I want to read you this quote from the drummer from Big Brother and the Holding Company, Dave Getz. He said, with Big Brother, my experience is that in the last 30 years, the audience would like to hear all the songs played the way they are on the record. There's a certain whole body of classic rock people now that have created this whole idea of tribute bands.
That's right.
I heard a great band the other week called Aja Vu, a Steely tribute band. They played every fucking note perfect. They were great. I loved hearing it. But I can't do that. And I can't even do that with Big Brother. I can't go out and play a combination of the two, the same kind of straight 4 rhythm that I was playing in 1967. I try to change it. I try to make it more interesting rhythmically and groove it more. Sometimes it really happens, and sometimes the other guys in the band don't know how to go with it. Some do and some don't. He just says emotionally I can't do it. And, I wonder, my impression, and you can correct me because you were there, and again, it seemed to me that the cats like Lee Morgan, Miles, a lot from what I've interviewed, when cats used to go see them, people talk about Miles turning his back on the crowd, but more to the point, it seemed like the message that they were conveying was, listen, I hope we really dig what we're playing. We love our music, and we hope as an audience that you dig it too. But even if you don't, we're still going to play it. And it's this idea, this whole concept of like, where we're in this very formulaic time, not just in music, but everywhere, the stratification where it's like, people pay a lot of money to hear the songs that they want to hear. Is there any credence to the idea that in order to sort of have a breakthrough, add a vocabulary to music, that it comes down to the fact that that you almost have to buck those trends? I know that it's like, what are you talking about? The audience is going to be pissed off if you don't play what they want to hear. But at some point, this catering to the audience and this tribute band idea, to me, do you see with younger cats this propensity? Do you see with more emboldened cats to say, I'm just going to do what I do because I dig it, and then if the audience can see that I'm into it, they're going to get off on it too?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're not a tribute band. We're the band that came up with the stuff.
Right.
So in that respect, I do what I do every night with the Blues Brothers, and so does Cropper. But it's within a tighter structure. We're playing the songs, but every night is different. Every night is, it's like playing golf. You're just looking to hit that sweet spot. and that we've been together now. This particular format, I've been together 14 years. This band is so tight. All we have to do is look at each other, and we know what we're playing. I mean, Penn Darvis and I, sometimes we play the exact same 1-bar lick fill together at the same time. And we don't really hear each other that well sometimes. Every gig is a little different. Festivals are funny. But, it's not really it's not a tribute band. It's the band that, Cropper played on most of those songs, So it's a little bit different. And when I step outside in the front, it may as well be a completely free solo, because on top of what we're playing over, I'm playing whatever comes in my head. I'm looking to add another notch to my gun soloistically. It's that sweet spot we're always going for. I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, no, because take it. You're right, because the Blues Brothers. This is the original stuff, but this idea of tribute bands. How did that come about? Because I don't think you guys would have been caught. Again, I know you played R&B, the R&B top 40 of the day with Dukes and the B3, and you're the three and the in Boston, but I got. I mean, listen, man. I picked up a warped quadraphonic LP of Diodato Donato live. I mean, there's some cover. There's maybe a cover or two, but it's like you guys were all about originality. And if you could just talk about, truly, if you can go back to a time, even now, when if you can talk about creativity in general, how to borrow and steal from people, but then ultimately find your own voice, and then also be incredibly creative and create new material as opposed to just relying on stuff. I mean, I'm going all over the place, but the point is that all the cats, the hip hoppers now, they're ripping beats from your albums from the early 70s.
I know.
Okay, there has not, and you can talk about music being taken out of the schools, but I mean, if people are, there's still tons of instruments. I walked into a thrift shop yesterday, and there was this little 8 to 12-year-old drum set. It was $100, a little too much. It was so in my pocket, though. And I just want you to talk to people about kind of what we talked about originally, with going back to Steig and Donald McDonald, just this creative improvisation, playing games in order to create new vocabulary in music.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to answer the question.
It's fine.
Quite the way you want. I think I've people like me who've been studio musicians for the last 40 years, kind of are unleashed. We play pretty much what we want, okay, in the context. So now, if I were to take a gig with a cover band, I wouldn't take a gig with a cover band. This is the extent I go. I wouldn't be able to play the same thing. I might as well take a gig in the theater and do a Broadway show.
Right.
And I have done that. I feel like a racehorse stuck in a store. It's like, that's not for me. But you have to understand, a lot of musicians, and a lot of great musicians, don't have the vehicle that some of us other people have the opportunity to do. I get used or get called to play on things to be free because they want to see what I come up with. But a lot of musicians are called, we need this, and that's what you're going to play. You want the gig. So the guys that are going out with these cover bands, and they are very popular, they're pretty much playing the record. I don't think I could do that. I guess, if I had to put food on the table, I would. But luckily for me, I don't need to do that. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, you're doing. No, again, you are. This is okay. We're gonna crack this nut because eventually I'm gonna get to what I'm actually trying to ask you. But it's like, so I interviewed Michael Carvin, the drummer, 2 days ago, and
right.
So I'm asking if you. Again, it's hard because you've been immersed in a career that has taken you around the world. You have gigs here. You're picking up gigs. You're doing your thing. It's not like you're sitting around, looking at the evolution of musicianship. But I'd like you to try to, as best you can, tell the audience how we've gotten to this point. I'm going to read you this quote from Carvin here. He said,
okay.
He said, during the 70s, all drummers still studied then. Now, he said, this is what he means by that is drummers today don't study the instrument like they did. It was about studying the instrument, not to play a gig, not to make money, but to study the instrument. Today, we're dealing with one-dimensional characters. I'm a hard rocker. I'm just a hip-hopper. I'm just a jazz. I'm a that. When we were coming along in the early 50s, in order for me to accept a job, I had to know how to create a ballad, cha-cha-cha, mambo, rock and roll beat with the eighth notes. Ultimately, he said, Joe Chambers came up to him and said, hey, man, where are you from? He said, Texas. He said, yeah, I'm hip to you. Chambers said, you're playing a jazz top with a rock and roll bottom. Now, the point is, what I'm trying to say is, how did we get to this sort of hired gun mentality? You just sort of alluded to it, where they hire peeps and they say, this is what we want. So they bring in somebody who has a good rock beat, or they can play a jazz beat. But how did we get from this compartmentalization from before, when it was like Pendarvis, Tropea, Murata? You play some Louisiana soul gumbo. Play some northern. Play a soul beat. Play an R&B. How did we go from this deep bag of cats, people, you want to call them jack of all trades, masters of all trades like yourselves, to this idea where
chameleon?
Say again.
We were you had to be a chameleon.
A chameleon. So that's what is so enticing to me about your generation, to the point now where it's like, oh, I'm just a rock guy. And that's what Carvin's talking about. Studying the kit so that someone says, I want to play a samba. I want to play a bolero. I want to play funk. I want to play, it seems to me like it's just kind of one style, one-dimensional characters. Did you see a fundamental change in the industry, or can you just riff on that?
I really don't know the answer to that. I think that in the 70s was the most, which was mostly my era, was each musician, most of the musicians on the scene were chameleons. I had to play a Fender, but if they wanted a Freddie Green thing, I came in with my L5 and played many of CDs, records rather, Freddie Green style, and it would be a big band. I think I don't know why some of the musicians of recent times don't have all the bases covered, because in those days you really did. Gary Chester Sr., remember the drummer Gary Chester?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, he was the first drummer I played with in the studio. I was 12 years old. Wow. And later on in life, when I got back from Boston, I may have talked about this already. He was a contractor, and he also was contracting a lot of record dates and jingles in New York. And the first thing he said to me, he says, "Hey, Tropea, you got all the styles down? You got all the pedals?" I said, "Yeah." All you got to do is listen to Diodato's record. You'll hear what I do, because that's what I did with Diodato. I had a lot of different sounds. I think that maybe there are two classes of musicians that have come up in more recent times. The guys that played great at what they did and they fell into one slot, and then there's the other guys that really study drums, study every aspect of drums, all the rudiments, like Gadd did. And maybe that's the answer to that. Some guys just didn't think it was important to study all the styles. But ironically, the music from the 60s, or actually even the 50s, more so the 50s, from the 50s to today, has grown into a thing where it's all got very much homogenized. And one of the reasons, I think, was smooth jazz. You listen to a smooth jazz record, you're hearing jazz, you're hearing pop, certainly, guy trying to be a popular musician, and I don't know, country. You listen to country records now. The musicians from Nashville, they're so well-rounded. They play everything, not just country music. Am I rambling? And do you understand what I'm trying to say?
No, I'm loving every minute. I mean, I think that your analysis is great. I also wonder about just the idea of because there was this multitude of opportunities in the studio, that there was a lot of incentive for you to learn all styles. I mean, if somebody called you up and said, "Hey, I don't know. I mean, I was curious if this ever happened to you. I don't have the soundbite queued up right now, but Spinoza told me the legendary story about Right Place, Wrong Time. The Dr. John tune.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the story where he came? He was.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So but he was in a taxi. This is what the innocence of it. I mean, he was in the taxi cab, and the driver's like, "Yo, this is my favorite new guitar solo. Check it out." And Spinoza's like, "Yeah, it's me." He's like, "Yeah, whatever, man." I mean, can you talk about a time in the studio where you were on your way to a gig or anything along those lines where next thing you know, you heard it on the radio? I mean, to me, that is. It gets lost now in this saturation of media we have, the YouTube generation that we're living in now. But before, it was so. I mean, did it come along like that? Where I'm not exactly. Can you share a kind of a story where there was this it wasn't planned out, but you were pulled into a session and then it turned into something somewhat popular?
Well, but my story is a little bit different than David's in the sense that it was over the course of 2 sessions.
Okay.
Two different things. I got a call from a guy named Diodato. I had no idea who he was, and they asked me. It was his secretary. He asked me, "Could you do a date at Green Street Recording downtown off Canal Street? It's Astrid Gilberto date." And I think it was a demo. In fact, I'm not totally sure, but it might have been a demo. Did I tell you this story already?
I will tell you if you're repeating anything. You go.
Okay. So now this is 1970, maybe 72. I wasn't really all that busy. I might have been doing 3-4 dates a month if I was lucky. But I really wanted to be a studio musician. I was doing an off-Broadway show as a conductor with Sandy Duncan, and it was a small little production, but it was a paycheck. Anyway, so I got this call Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock, from 4 to 5 or 4 to 6 at Green Street Recording. Of course, I took it because I want to do as many dates as I can. But that afternoon, I had been home around 2 o'clock, and it was a real bad storm, real terrible storm, one of those, spring storms.
Sure.
So I said to my wife at the time, you know what? I'm not going to go into the city. I'm living in South Hackensack, New Jersey. I was worried about the streets being flooded. I picked up the phone and I said, "Wait a minute, what am I doing? You don't cancel dates. You're trying to get into this business. You don't cancel a date." So I sucked it up and drove in. I did the date with Diodato. The next week, I get a call from Creed Taylor's office. Are you available such and such a week for the whole week, 2 to 5, 10 to 1, 2 to 5, at Rudy Van Gelder's studio. It's an album for Diodato, and Creed Taylor's the producer. So point number one. Had I not done that record down at Green Street, I would have never got called for Diodato's record. That's point number one.
Right. I did. Keep going. Yeah, this is good.
Now, point number two is I go to the date. Now, I'm not really savvy about doing record dates in those days. I was just starting out, basically. In the date is Ron Carter, Diodato, Billy Cobham, and it had 2 bass players. I can't remember his name. What's his name? He plays with Chick Corea. Tall cat. Great guy.
It'll come to me. Go ahead. Oh,
yeah. Anyway,
was it Miroslav Vicious or no?
No. He was with the original.
Stanley.
Stanley Clarke.
Yeah.
One played. Ron played upright. Stanley
very
played
cool.
Electric. So first of all, I've never seen that before. That was number one. Number two, and Ray Barretto. Now, all the guys were very nice to me. I actually did know them. I've seen them on dates before, but not this intimate. We're doing a record. We're doing an album, and there's no horns or strings, right? So we do this track, and I got this. It's 2001, and I got this big ass solo. I say to myself, "Wow, you better be on." So we did. I think we only did. We ran it down once, and we took the first take. I think I might be wrong on that, but it wasn't a whole day of recording it, So, and then we did the rest of the week. We did the whole album in 1 week, and it was great experience. Diodato loved me. I loved him. I still to this day.
I gotta send you my interview with that. We had a ball. That dude's a classic dude, man. I love him.
Yeah, he's the best. He's the best. I just spoke to him the other day.
He's doing all right. He's always a little bit stressed out. I love him though. He's always burning. He's always burning.
That's his middle name.
Stress. No, but
I always just say, "Is anything okay, D?"
Is anything? I mean, okay. So you nailed this. And that was. So go ahead. You nailed the.
So I played. I played a record. I played a whole record that whole week. Great. And everybody had a great time. I was. I was on a high.
Sure.
So about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, 3 months later, I'm driving in. I'm coming in over the George Washington Bridge down to my mother and father's house in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and I pull in, as I many times did, because I lived down the road from them. I would pull in and I'd say hello to them, sit with my mother, have a cup of coffee with them, whatever. So I pull into the driveway, and this big band comes up, down, bum, bum, ba-da, and then a guitar solo comes up. Now, I never heard the finished product. I never heard the melody, right?
Mm-hmm.
All I did was play this rhythm section, great rhythm section, and a solo. So I hear the solo come up, and I'm listening, and I said, wow, that sounds great. It's a nice sound, right? Damn, man, he's playing some of my licks. Guy sounds like he listened to me. Well, it was me.
Wow.
I didn't know.
I'm looking at the prelude, Diodato.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Right.
So I mean, when you went in there, just to be clear, they were just laying down rhythm.
We just did tracks that week.
Right.
Just
so
it
was just drums. It was just rhythm stuff. Because I mean, this is like they have string arrangements. So it was just the very basic.
Oh yeah. It was a gigantic band in the end. You know.
So when you first started, you said, "Holy shit, that's me." What would that tell me?
That's me.
Tell me that feeling. I mean, that feeling is what every musician, I hope, feels at some point.
But I felt great.
Yeah.
I felt great because I said, "Wow, it's being played on the AM record." I forget what I was listening to at the time, but it was obviously a hit. But like in a week and a half, it was a hit. And then this is us musicians how we think. As soon as I knew it was me and I knew it was a hit, I said, I got to listen to that solo again, man. There was a couple of things I didn't like. Immediately started to pick it apart.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are your hardest critics. But I mean, this is the other thing I'm trying to figure out, because it's very frustrating. Like, I wanted to come in and blow some serious Blue Mitchell funk today. But the problem is there's like, in this one album, there's Joe Beck, there's you, there's like 4 different guitarists on the album, and sometimes I feel like, you know, Joe might have had his whatever he might have been doing the wah pedal thing, and you might have been doing a solo. How did you learn to stay out of each other's way? Or did you, because even on this Prelude album, Berliner's playing classical guitar on this album, but maybe he came in at a later date. How did you guys all, when there's 3 guitars on the album, did you all play at the same time and have different roles? Or this to me was...
Well, you always had different roles. But first of all, Jay Berliner, he didn't play on the songs I played on.
Okay, so he was like
he was unto himself.
I dig. Okay.
But when you know, many times in any given week in the '70s, I'd be sitting next to McCracken, sitting next to Spinoza, and a whole host of other guys. You know, and that's what was so beautiful about it. You got better by just being around great guitar players.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I used to have a joke with the drummers when they would comment on you know, on the drummers playing. I said, yeah, well, how do you really know? You never really played. How many drummers do you play with?
Yeah.
You know, because the guitar players were the ones that would not normally play with another, at least one guitar. In the '60s, there was 3 guitar players on a date normally.
That's,
you know?
I mean, that exactly. I mean, that to me is like, but the double, who played when you went to, so you and Diodato was an immediate love fest, and then you wound up at the Hollywood Bowl for that seminal record. I mean, I have a quadraphonic press of that from like, it's like a Peruvian press. But I mean, how can you talk about, because if I remember correctly, there were at least you and somebody else on guitar, I think.
No, there was never 2 guitars on my when I was with him.
So
when we played live, it was always just me.
Can you talk about that? Was that one of the biggest stages? I mean, obviously you had been on the bandstands in Boston, but I mean, was that?
No, that for me that I got thrown into playing some big venues. I mean, all of a sudden I found myself, you know, on top. I mean, we were like rocking. We were playing Red Rocks, and Herbie Hancock was opening the show.
Red Rocks. You were playing Red Rocks Amphitheater.
Yeah, and we did a tour of Hawaii twice, all the islands. One tour was Benson was the opener. which really made me feel like crap.
You had to
I
follow
mean, I know
him.
Benson. I know Benson since I was 18 rather, and I used to say to him when he'd get off the stage, I'd say to him, "How the hell am I going to get on stage now?" This guy was so unbelievable. But it was different music, he was playing different stuff. But yeah, no, all of a sudden I found myself like people knew me.
Right.
The record was so big, and I'd be sitting in a luncheonette between dates sometimes, and the guy across in the next booth be talking about, "Do you hear that guitar player, John Tropea with Diodato? Man, he's a mother." And I say to myself, I can't believe this. People are talking about me. Then I started to say, I wonder what they're saying that's bad about me.
Well, if anything, I mean, you probably knew that they were a little bit envious because, I mean, just forgetting that. It's interesting, though. I mean, you did come up at a time. When I interviewed Hal Blaine, I was asking him about, really, I mean, all the Beach Boy records, he's the drummer on those. All those seminal records, but yet the accompanist, Emil Richards, Julius Wechter, a lot of those cats did not get credits on the back of albums. One reason I've gravitated towards you guys is because at a certain point, the accompanists started to get credits. And that I asked him, I said, how did you deal with that? Like, didn't that make you insecure? Didn't it bother you that, you were not, it just was Brian Wilson. It was just the Beach Boys. And Hal's like, you know what? We I forget the exact quote, but he just said, we were take it to the bank, baby. We all saw ourselves economically moving up in society. We were all working quite a bit, and it didn't really bother us that we didn't have, our names on the back of albums. But you really came up. I mean, do you feel like that was something that people like Creed Taylor, Don Schlitten, or ultimately people down the road that helped you grow especially once they were like, well, who played on that track? Who played on 2000?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the fact that we were on the jackets of so many records was like, I don't know I think the only records that I played on was Stylistics that didn't have my name on it.
Right. You played on a Stylistics record?
Yeah, a few of them. Yeah.
Please let me know. That's all. I gotta figure out those. I gotta get those immediately.
Well, we have Spinoza and I have an ongoing, not a feud, ongoing thing. He thinks he played the sitar on "You Make Me Feel Brand New." I think I did.
The sitar.
Yeah. Well, not sitar, like the electric sitar.
No, this is great because. So you and it's really hard to know because you really can't. It's not a guitar. It's hard to hear your style within that. Does that mean?
No. Those there were written out arrangements. We worked a lot with Van McCoy, and Bertie Coteau, Harold Wheeler, Horace Ott, and those guys. I mean, although the guitar parts were free, but when they wrote a part for a sitar, usually it was a melody thing, and remember what was it? Hugo and Luigi?
Sure.
Their productions played on all of their productions at a certain time, and then there's songs that there's songs that I think I played on. I may even be wrong with the stylistics. I don't remember half the songs I played, but I did a lot of records where I played guitar on them, and sometimes you think you played on something. That's why I keep on joking with David is that maybe I played on it, maybe I didn't. Who knows? But it's a written part. It almost didn't matter who played it. Any guy in New York or any guitar player who could read would be able to play it. Like I played the sitar on Cats in the Cradle.
Oh my, Harry Chapin.
I played on that album, all the guitars on that album, and all the guitars on the album after it. And I think that was his last album.
It's so interesting you bring this up because I interviewed, I'm sure you crossed paths with the bass player John B. Williams.
I know the name. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever crossed paths with him.
He talked to go in 1976. He went to a Middle Eastern Goodwill tour. Lord knows it seems like eons away from where we are today with Benny Carter, and Earl Palmer was on drums, and he bought a sitar in Pakistan, and he was going around to these different countries, and each time he'd be trying to find a music book notation to learn how to play the sitar, and ultimately, one day I think in Egypt or something, someone said to him, "There is no book. It's all passed down. The music is passed down." Ultimately, the Europeans came in. They couldn't totally understand the African rhythms or the Indian rhythms, so they notated this stuff.
Right.
And so, I mean, I guess that was kind of in my head this morning. I wanted to talk to you. I know you started when you were 12, but how much music was, in the traditional sense, passed down to John Tropea, as opposed? I mean, obviously, you learned how to read, you learned how to play in different settings, but when you look back on it, how much of it was passed down? How much of it was just you self-exploring, being self-taught?
Oh, I think musically, the majority is passed down. I got from records, I got from playing live R&B songs, and they homogenize through you, and you come up with your own licks. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the beginning, learning to read, learning the basics around the guitar or the piano, whatever. Then it immediately goes to what you can absorb from listening and woodshedding, and I would say the majority of what I do came from that.
This is interesting stuff. I would your name, obviously, your reputation followed yourself. You were hot to trot playing Red Rocks and with Diodato, and then all of a sudden, the mercurial Van Morrison came calling. Is that right?
Yeah, I did one record with him.
Because Van was truthful. I mean, again, he's not dead. I hope to secure an interview with him at some point if I can ever track him down. But the dude was about as unpredictable as any. I mean, you talk to any of the. I've talked to Ozzy Allers and David Hayes and Daoud Shaw and all the cats that played in his bands, and you didn't know what he was thinking. He might fire a guitar player on the stage in the middle of a show if he didn't like what the guy was doing. Did you? What was your experience with Van? Because at the core, Van actually considered himself an accompanist. He used to say that. He goes, "I just think I'm an accompanist,"
Yeah, I can see why he would say that. I don't remember too much about the session with him. I remember the session, of course, but there's a thing that happens. Sometimes musicians on stage are not like that when they're using studio musicians in the studio. He was very cordial, very nice to me, and he wasn't hard on me in any way. Whereas he might fire somebody on stage, but I didn't see that in the studio.
Right.
Also, I didn't do it. I guess I must have played pretty good because he didn't. I guess if I played lousy, he might have fired me. But
this is incredible. I mean, just for the audience here, in '74, this is the elasticity of John Tropea, Diodato, John Lucien. Dude, that dude is such a legend, John Lucien, man. What a great player he was. Ray Bryant, again, correct me if this is not accurate. Ray Bryant in the cut, Many Shades of Blue, Blue Mitchell, John Lucien, Mind's Eye, Diodato, Moonlight Serenade, Second Coming with Jerry LaCroix, Stars with Janice Ian, Street Lights with Bonnie Raitt, Verdant Fleece with Van Morrison, Electric Guitar and Sitar with Very Rare T-Bone Walker.
I played on that?
That's what the All Music Guide is crediting you with. So, I mean, there are. Did you? I mean,
Oh no, I did. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Were you in the studio with T-Bone?
I don't remember being in the studio with him. I think I overdubbed it.
Overdubbed it. I wanted to ask you about some inspirational stuff here. I was talking to Peter Albin yesterday from Big Brother, and again, Big Brother. He talked about Jesse Fuller. Essentially, he had something called a Footdella, which was like this big bass cabinet with bass strings that he controlled with a foot pedal, and he had a harmonica, and he had a kazoo, and he had a tambourine, and he had a guitar. He was a one-man band. He also had a shoe store in Oakland, and he made a lot of records on that label, Good Times Jazz. And Did you have a chance? Were you inspired at all by any of the black blues cats that were doing kind of something along those lines in the New York area? I think a lot about the Reverend Gary Davis or the blind dobro players on Market Street in Chicago. Were there any cats that like the African cats that were coming up from the South that inspired you? Maybe you never played with them, but because they literally were playing like 4 or 5 different instruments and singing at the same time.
No, I have to say, I really didn't get into. I liked it when I saw it, but I really didn't follow that. I more or less followed what was on the radio and what I was called to play in Boston and stuff like that, learning R&B tunes. I mean, occasionally I was on a record day with like Jimmy Spruill, who was a wonderful black blues player.
What was his name?
I gotta say, I wasn't really heavily into blues.
Sure.
In those days, it was more R&B and trying to learn how to play jazz. I think I play more blues now, but it's kind of blues jazz.
Who was the cat you played with? Spruill. His last name was what?
Jimmy Spruill.
How do you spell his last name?
I think Sprool.
Spruill.
I think it was.
So
Spruill.
Wow, interesting stuff. So you didn't, yeah, maybe at the time it wasn't. I just think you know what it is: authenticity. Who caught your eye? Maybe not someone in the vein of music you were trying, or maybe it was an R&B group. I mean, could you talk about someone early on, a leader that was so authentic in their, in the way they displayed their art, either as an entertainer. I talked to so many of the guys from Scotland, and when Bobby Blue Bland would come over, or Jimmy Reed. I mean, they idolized those guys, and I know that those are in a blues bag. But was there anyone that really hit you, just in the sense of how authentic they were as a musician?
Well, I could say Bill Haley and the Comets. At a very young age, I was very impressed with that, with a big band and fronted with a guitar player. I liked Johnny Smith immensely. There was another guitar player that was Howard Roberts was the first funk jazz. When I heard Howard Roberts on record, I never saw him play live. When I heard him, I said, "That's the shit, man. That's for me." And I got to say, probably I play more like that than Johnny Smith, because I was drawn towards the funk. And then I absolutely loved Louis Bonfa, which completely turned a completely left turn, because he was a Brazilian guitarist. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I record copied his solo Tenderly, and I got a scholarship to Berkeley with it.
Wow. How old were you? Wait, hold on. You did a completely different arrangement of it? Or?
No. I completely copied it. He played solo guitar. He played Tenderly, and it was the first time I ever heard somebody play a bass line, chords, and the melody at once on the guitar.
This is so. I mean, because Dave Grusin told me too about Howard Roberts, but if you can get as wonkish as you want, but can you talk about the funk and the rock that he was blending in? That dude was such an unsung cat, because I listened.
Yeah.
I mean, just talk about how he was like the merge master, if you will. Can you talk about what you were hearing that was so scintillating?
I guess in a nutshell, I was hearing jazz, which I wanted to play, but I never heard funk with jazz the way he played it. Even if I listened to Wes Montgomery, you didn't hear the funk that he played, the way Howard Roberts played it. And I don't know if you know. Do you know any of my new albums? Any of my
just
albums
just the one you sent me.
Okay, that's the latest one. Got Your Rhythm right here?
Yeah.
There's a couple albums called Standard Influence that I did. One is Standard Influence Rock Candy, which is based off of Jack McDuff's record.
Absolutely. Wow, I need to hear that.
And the other one is just called Standard Influence. And if I would, just off the top of my head, not that I sound like Howard Roberts, but to me, I remember his records sounding more like that to me, where I'm playing jazz, but I'm playing funky jazz, but not smooth jazz,
Of course. No, I mean this is and then I want you to answer this question as well. It's from my interview with Gene Perla a couple weeks ago. He said, when I first joined Elvin Jones, I was trying to find where the beat was. It took me months to figure it out and really be confident about it. I wound up paying attention to his ride cymbal. I was pretty much able to get inside Elvin's beat and pretty much be there with him. Not too long ago, I had a great opportunity to play with the great Jeff Tain Watts, and that threw me back into Elvin because Jeff is a complicated drummer. He fills up the space with a lot of stuff going on. What I noted was I was trying to figure out what he was doing and fit into that. I didn't feel like I was getting in there exactly right. Then a certain gig came along and I said, you know what? The hell with this. I'm just going to play where I think the beat is. And what was interesting was that we locked together just like that. In my particular case, it was up to me to say, hey, this is where I think it is. Then it seemed to work. Could you talk about a drummer that you worked with in the jazz or in any context where this kind of thing happened, where it was so polyrhythmic that you were really having a hard time figuring out where the beat was?
I don't know if I've ever really had trouble finding out where the beat was, finding out where he centers the beat.
Maybe that's the better way. Thank you for helping.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you listen to some of these, like a drummer takes it out, and you might lose where one is. Everybody. I lose where one is once in a while too. But I mean, I like when I played with I played once with Tain Watts with Lonnie Hammond Smith. Dr. Lonnie Smith.
Dr. Lonnie Smith, yeah.
Yeah, at Smoke in New York. And I have to say, we burned the stage. I mean, and the three of us never played together, individually. We never played together.
I love this.
Walked in and we played for 2 nights in a row, and it was one of the highlights of my career. I mean, we all, just a lot of smiles back and forth. Different bass players and drummers, they center their beat off in the middle, on the right of the beat, and on the left of the beat slightly. You just gotta be assertive enough to pull each other together, I think. I don't know that I've ever had really a problem with it. I've had other problems, like I have the problem with way back in the beginning. I wasn't too proficient in playing odd times, like 7/4. But all you got to do is fall on your face once on a date, and I made sure that didn't happen again.
Can you talk about how a gig where you really learned how to play odd metered music? I remember talking to Billy Cobham in our first interview, and when Mahavishnu first started, it was just him and John in a duo all day for weeks, and he said the 2 things I realized that I needed work on was my breathing and odd metered music. So
that's so funny. Yeah. It's so funny you should say that, because my odd metered music fall on my face story is with Billy Cobham.
I love it. Break it down.
After I did the Diodato record with Billy, actually 2 records. No, the first record. Then I think he was doing his solo. I think it was his solo record after that.
Yeah, the Spectrum.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Spectrum.
Yeah, you're on.
I played on some of the.
I'm looking at the guest artist guitar. I mean, I know that. Yeah, the tracks that you're on are great because Tommy Bolin always gets the. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. I need to hear this because this is classic.
This is a funny story because it's just what you said to me, that he felt that he needed work on that in the beginning.
Sure.
So my teacher, not my teacher, but Billy Cobham calls me up and he says, "I want you to play on my record down at Electric Lady." I said, "Sure, man. I'd be honored to." So I go down there, and it's kind of a live record date with 3 or 4 horns, and guitar, bass, drums, and keyboard. So we did one. I forget how many tunes we did. I think it was only 1 or 2 or 3 tunes. Definitely 2, maybe 3. But the one tune was in 7/4, right?
Okay, go ahead. I got to figure out what tune this is. Go ahead.
So we start playing the thing, and I'm struggling over the bar line. I'm not feeling the 7 the way he was. And he's an intricate drummer, so it's when he's playing 7, I'm not making any excuses, but he can make it hard too,
No excuses. But you were trying to fit in, but it was the first time.
I just couldn't feel the 7.
Okay.
And one of the horn players was looking at me, and he was tapping. There's one way to think of 7 is bop 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 bop. Right. So he was doing that to me to get me to feel it. Right. So I just couldn't do it. I think we got through the take. I don't even know to this day whether he might have replaced me. I don't think he did, but I got through the take.
Oh my God!
So
go ahead.
No, we take a break, and I'm completely humiliated. You freaking asshole! You couldn't get this together. You could not get this together. So I go outside, and I come back into the control room, and the 3 of the horn players are sitting in front of the board, and I can't see them. So one guy says to the other, he says, "Hey, where's Tropea?" And the other guy says, "He's outside trying to figure out how to play in 7."
It was Jimmy. This is Jimmy Owens, Joe Farrell, and other cats were there too. But that is
well, it wasn't Jimmy Owens. It was Joe Farrell that said it.
Joe Farrell
and
said.
I knew Joe, and I knew Jimmy Owens for a long time.
Sure.
And I looked. I turned around the corner so they could see me. I said, "You're damn right I am."
I love this is. Oh man, you know what, John? Let's when are you getting back from when are you getting back from Japan?
I get back from Japan on the 17th or 18th of June.
Of June. All right. So if you're in I don't know if you got any. I'm going to be back with my family in Long Island. For that month, if you have any gigs going on, or if you're going to be in New York, I would just love to connect. And if nothing else, we could just do part 3. I'd love to talk to you about these recent excursions with the brothers, and then obviously with your own band as well.
Sure. You know what? Make a note to call me or email me around the 18th.
I will.
And I'll be back. I think I got the rest of the month off too for June. So we could either, if I'm in New York, or we could rendezvous somewhere.
Yeah. No, we'll kick it around wherever you are. I'm planning on. I got some stuff to do. I'm rarely back on the East Coast, but just always a great hang with you. You always go there, man. You just make sure that Marini and Alan Rubin. I need to talk to those cats.
Alan passed away.
Alan's gone. Okay.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
And you know who else just died last week? It was Don Payne,
the bass player.
Yeah, Don Payne.
Well, and I just read a feed off from Facebook. Randy Brecker said Dave Valentin died.
Yes.
So I'm just, you know what? I just want to keep going. I want to keep instilling people with enthusiasm and gusto and love. And so let's just stay in touch, man. I'll send you some interviews later, and we'll be in touch, man.
Cool, man.
Yeah, good
talking to you.
Safe travels,
I'll
man.
I'll talk to Lou for you tonight.
Thank you, man.
All right, buddy.
Later on, buddy.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Another great hang with John Tropea, and we'll be back in a little bit with Raoul Matute. In the meantime, we will play some tunes here from